CJ Stroud feels positive about the progressions of the offense under Nick Caley, but do you buy it or should we be worried the Texans might have a rocky start to the 2025 season?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texan podcast is for Texan fans all around. If you are one of our everydayers from the Himalayas, thank you for coming back. New listener, well, I am your Texans credentialed media member and football analyst, John Hickman. Today's show is about the slow day. There's no day like the slow day. We still have to talk about all things Texas, and that's what we're going to do. Harris County is back, and no, I ain't talking about y'all having to worry about property taxes. I'm talking about Christian Harris. Christian Harris is back. Growing pains with Nick Caley. Just having the conversation on, where Nick Caley is right now in this point of his play calling career, first year for him, where CJ Stroud is right now in his first year with Nick Caley. And we also look at the offensive progressions right now according to CJ Stroud. He feels like they're in a good place, so we'll dive into that. Just want to give an update from Wednesday training camp. Again, no pads on Wednesday. Christian Harris and Dameon Pierce were out there, so that's a great sign. DP was running with the ones, first team unit. Nick Chubb did not practice. Per Houston Chronicles, Jonathan Alexander, Christian Harris ran with first-team defense during walkthroughs with Azeez Al-Shire. The X Factor is back. So it's exciting. Don't know what that means. I have my thoughts on what that means for the right now and the future, so that's what we'll close off with. But another practice of Ariante Ursary at left tackle with the rest of the first-team unit shaping out. Tomlinson at left guard. Andrews at center. I mean, right now he just has the edge. Hasn't been too much of up and down and inconsistency with that. He's been running out there with first team at center. And again, I think he provides just the balance and what they're looking for in terms of run support for that offensive line in the middle. Ed Ingram at right guard, Howard on the right side at right tackle. So that's how that's shaping out. But I want you guys to hear from CJ Stroud on how he would assess the progress of the offensive installation right now.
Yeah, every day we're growing. We're everything's starting to come a lot easier. We're starting to make more plays, know what guys are good at in the scheme, and trying to fit the guys to do those type of things. So, it's not overnight. So, our defense, they've been together for 3 years almost, like a lot of the same guys. So, they're making calls and checks quicker sometimes than we can, and then it's vice versa. So, I think it's good. We're one of the best, I think the best defense in the league, and it's been hard, but it's also, very great for us to get a good challenge every day. Yeah, it's, it's the difference, it's the balance between being a competitor and then being fall in love with the process and not or the progress and not like the result in the moment. Because sometimes you can throw a ball and look like a bad ball, but bad communication between, myself and the receiver. So that's just like one point of emphasis on, having to work through those kinks, because that's what comes in with like a newer scheme. So, but yeah, other than that, you still don't want to be turning the ball over or, see bad plays. But I think we've gotten past that part in camp, and, now it's just like more competitive on both sides. And, but yeah, you got to be able to still compete and like hold yourself to a standard that you're not going to, make mistakes. But when those things happen, learning from them and just having that balance.
I love CJ Stroud pointing out the bad communication, and that comes with just learning and getting those reps with new guys, right? Nico, for the most part, Nico has had some drops, but for the most part, CJ knows where he is, knows where he's going to be, and knows the tendencies of Nico Collins. And you also see just the connection with CJ Stroud and Christian Kirk. Why? Well, Christian Kirk, I think, is coming up on year 8. Nearly a decade in the NFL, a ton of experience. When these guys talk about Christian Kirk, they talk about Christian Kirk being a baller, going all the way back to his Texas A&M days. So we know that he's proven. And he also mentioned, listen, I did some things differently with my body this offseason. He's looking forward to having a full, complete season for the Houston Texans, which is what they need. But, I can appreciate CJ Stroud acknowledging that the defense we keep hearing about, well, those guys have been together and they have continuity with each other from a leadership standpoint, but especially calling out the fact that, hey, listen, they are better at communicating checks and making calls. And those things go into how quickly they can dictate and disrupt what the offense is trying to install or accomplish. Right? That's a big reason why I want to see 2 to 3 drives on Saturday. What I can also appreciate from this quote is, if this is speeding up the process of CJ Stroud in the offense right now, then when he does finally get it down, and he also called himself, this was a couple of days ago, he called himself pretty much a creature of instinct. He's a very instinctual quarterback. So once he finally gets it down, his process, of reading a defense will be probably his best attribute, which for a quarterback, again, who calls himself instinctual, and by the way, who is also a gamer, will really get this team over the hump. And I have to say something because we've had our concerns. I've had my concerns. I've voiced them on here on the Locked On Texans show, also on the Squad show. I've voiced them on social media. And then I sat back because I tried to find an angle, and I sat back and I thought to myself, this kind of reminds me just a little bit of the test score that dropped a couple of years ago before CJ Stroud came out and eventually was drafted by the Houston Texans. And he is a gamer. He's a baller. So as they're going through practice and as he's going through learning a playbook, right, learning new playmakers on the outside, new running backs out there, never hand the ball off to Nick Chubb, right? Never hand the ball off to Woody Marks. And the two guys that he has experience with, he's just now getting one of those guys back in Damian Pierce, right? Never had Ariante Arcery blocking for him. Never had Cam Robinson blocking for him. Never had Ed Ingram blocking for him. Never had Lakin Tomlinson blocking for him. As a matter of fact, the only projected starter right now that he's used to is Titus Howard. So I feel like he is kind of beat up a little bit mentally, just trying to learn a lot of these things, right? Just trying to get it all down. But I had to remind myself, think about the Chargers game in the playoffs, John. Think about how good he was. He wasn't just mind-blowing, but think about how good of a job he did against that Kansas City team where he got sacked, 8 times? Think about it. Think about some of those games last year where CJ Stroud, among all of the issues that he had to go through in the circumstances with the offensive line just being bad and not being able to, from an offensive play caller standpoint, switch things up, very copy and paste. Think about how the Houston Texans were in so many one-score games. They don't do that with any other quarterback that was on the roster last year. He is a game, and I just think right now that, mentioning the bad communication, everything that comes along with learning a new offense, I think that CJ Stroud understands that, hey, listen, guys, they are going to make us better. It's just a matter of when we click. It's very important that we see those guys play at least 2 to 3 drives on Saturday. Now, the question is, will it happen this year or next? Will it happen during the first half of the season or the second half of the season? The first 8 weeks, I think they played, 4 playoff games, 4 playoff teams. Will it click then? Will it click midway through? Or will we see this team have a late surge, right? I think that's a question. Will the growing pains we've seen during training camp continue into the middle of the season? Or is this something that we will see the Houston Texans offense kind of do a much better job by the time they get into that last preseason game of having a command and control over what they want to do offensively, essentially having the Texans offensive identity. So that's what we're going to talk about next. What to make of CJ Stroud's comments on CBS. I thought that was very telling. And the growing process with Nick Caley on the other side of the Locked On Texans podcast. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, the Astros keep letting us down, man. They just got a lot going on. Or whether you're golf on the green, high-stakes soccer action, and we know Football is back. FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach, having to do errands. You are sitting back, enjoying all of the action while making a little extra moolah. Who wouldn't like that? And the best part about FanDuel, they track your favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with daily new promotions and fun ways to bet. Whether you're placing the same game parlay or watching a bet right into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you are a part of the action. New to FanDuel? No problem. New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet win. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Again, visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. I do want to go back a little moment and talk about CJ Stroud being a gamer. Stroud is one of the better younger quarterbacks in the NFL. I think when they had the top 25, under 25, CJ Stroud was around the higher number on that list. And Houston has guys like Will Anderson Jr. on that list. Derek Stingley Jr. is on the list. A lot of few juniors on this team, right? But Stroud is going to be okay. I do think that it's a matter of when, though. Right? So he's going through a couple of adjustments, right? New offense. We cannot downplay that. And I think that, to be fair, have I downplayed it? No. My expectations of the type of quarterback I think CJ Stroud is, I have used that to kind of regulate how I am going to be fair and maybe overreact to how the offense has been performing, because I have seen things that are very uncharacteristic of CJ Stroud. Low energy, that's not him. And I hope that everything on a personal front is going good for him. On CBS, he mentioned that he's looking for personal wins in his life as well. So hopefully everything is going good with him there. The amount of interceptions, we know that he is a low interception type of quarterback, been that way since Ohio State. But on the other side of things, man, we cannot ignore the fact that there were games last year that if CJ Stroud didn't make that throw, the Houston Texans lose, i.e. the Indianapolis Colts kick off the year. That Nico throw. In the game that they probably shouldn't even been down in. They allowed 2 bombs by Anthony Richardson, right? So the process, you can't shake the process. You can't fake the funk with the process. You have to allow the process to be the process. The process is going to be ugly. The process is going to be nasty sometimes. The process is going to get to a point where maybe you just don't even want to talk about your quarterback because you know he's good, but he's thinking it up right now. The thing is, when you don't rush the process, then the results are glorious. When you rush the process, which is kind of what happened in 2024 a little bit, then those results get to a point where you guys are maybe in the comment section on social media saying, I'm through with it, right? I seen one comment, and I am not making this up. Guys are like, hey, listen, we're going to be drafting Arch, man. We're going to be in a race for Arch Manning. I'm like, come on, man. Let's keep it real here. You got a quarterback, and you need to stick by his side. So, but Texan fans, get ready for some excitement. The week 1 game against the Rams will have Kevin Harlan calling the CBS game, and with the Rams potentially not having Matthew Stafford, who's dealing with his own uphill injury battle, the Texans defense will look to be feasting on that offense. So it should be a good outing for the Texans. But yesterday, CJ Stroud spoke with Evan Washburn of CBS, and he touched on a few things that I thought were very important, right? CJ Stroud talked about working with Nick Caley in the interview and the big picture. Called him a fiery guy, brings out a juice every day. I have yet to see that juice consistently. I hope that they're getting that energy over in the Greenbrier, West Virginia. Called him very smart, and he wants to learn about quarterback. That's very important. He also said that gave me a lot of ownership on the reads and how we're going to break things down. So from a quarterback perspective, getting that ownership, which is what CJ Stroud asked for a little bit more towards the end part of 2024. Nick Caley is coming from an offense background where he's mentioned several times and the things that they do that he likes. And so he's getting that more on his play, getting that ownership, which is a good thing. But guys, again, it takes time, right? Everybody ain't gonna wake up with that ownership and just have it down packed. He also mentioned that he's been watching a ton of old Patriots film, but the one thing that I found interesting is he said they were in it for so long, it's year one, referring to the Texans and where they are right now. We're not going to be on that level yet, but we're closer every day. He truly believes that they are closer every day. He also went on to say that there are similarities in some of the things that they've done in the past, specifically mentioning the Rams. And so we know that McVey is of that Shanahan background. Nick Caley is coming over from that. So we understand that there's going to be some correlation there. But he mentioned ownership multiple times. And this is the second time he mentioned that he's been hard on himself, which for me gives insight into why CJ Stroud has seemed a little bit down and lethargic, just trying to get all of these things that's new for him down. He's not asked just to come in and run and be a part of the offense. Now he's being asked to run the offense, which is a good thing. With the timetable is on him actually getting over that hump. That's what we got to really kind of worry about or just think about or be concerned about, however you want to put it. I thought that interview was very telling on where he is and where the offense is right now. Kayley and Stroud may hate each other before they actually really like each other. And, of course, I'm joking on that part, but those guys may not be the best of friends right now because they're learning each other. CJ's learning Kayley. Kayley's learning CJ. He's learning CJ's tendencies and what he can do very well, extremely well. He's also learning some of the things being around Matthew Stafford and Tom Brady that he understands as a quarterback. You need to be better at this. And from CJ Stroud, for a quarterback to get a new OC, it's all about trust. And the only way that trust builds, people can say whatever they want, but you only get that trust when the results are there. No doubt about it. That's why Josh McDaniels and Tom Brady loved each other so well, because the results were there. But what I am getting at is they are both learning and handling more than they ever had in their NFL career, while under immense pressure from expectations and a defense that's widely regarded as top 5 in the NFL. CJ himself called that defense the best defense in the NFL. They are installing concepts, again, learning tendencies, and what's more important, unlearning bad habits. I want you guys to hear from CJ Stroud on Nick Caley's scheme progress, and if he sees the Rams head coach Sean McVey teaching skills in Nick Caley. And I'm going to play that right now for our audio listeners.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's very great. He comes from a different style that that I'm used to, at least in the NFL. So it's cool just to learn something new and put another tool in my toolbox. And yeah, it's another thing kind of, to the other point was like sometimes in our scheme, our defense, it's not going to work against them. But just to get the reps down, even though like it might not even work, like it helps. And I think he's very positive when it comes to that. He understands that. So I think it's been great, to just get down our foundation. And now we're building from like more of a game plan emphasis, and I think that'll be fun. Definitely, yeah. You can tell that them two guys are very close, and they talk the same. Like they have the same like tone of voice, which is kind of funny. Like same energy. Like Kale's, he's like a little turned up. Well, not a little. He's a lot turned up. He turned up to the max. And I'm more of a chill guy, at least like on the field. So yeah, it's good. It's like yin and yang, But he helps me. I help him. I think. But yeah, he's very like Sean McVay like, and so when I met Sean last year at practice, it was very similar to like what I get now in practice or like in meetings and stuff.
They may hate each other before they love each other. They like, and again, I don't mean real hate, but they may have a love-hate relationship before it comes a real love relationship, because essentially they are learning each other. And again, man, this goes back to one thing. That first team offense needs to be, and I ain't gonna say better be or they should be, like they need to be out there for at least 2 to 3 drives. They need a drive to see how everything's gonna flow. They need a drive out there to have a goal on that drive, and maybe a third drive to really find themselves in somewhat of a groove, accomplishing both what they needed from the first drive and the second drive. And I honestly want to see a touchdown. I don't care if it's by the ground. I don't care if it's through the air. I want to see a touchdown The ride can be bumpy and has been for the most part during training camp. It's been bumpy, but the hope is that this roster is sustainable for 2 to 3 years to reach the ultimate goal, which, by the way, will be right on schedule for when CJ Stroud has his first year, that contract extension, and Houston will be still in the NRG. So they can still bring a championship to the NRG off 16 and Kirby. The lease isn't up until 2032, I believe. The offense is set up to have some good playmakers on it for down the line. And I know everybody's worry, is winning it this year. But we have to be more realistic with our expectations of this offense and judge it by its visible progress. And we'll see more on that Saturday. Now, to close off, the importance of getting Christian Harris back. Is it about the future just as much as it is right now? I'll tell you why I think it is. More on the Locked On Texans podcast. This is also the perfect time to let you guys know that this episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here. We got preseason games Thursday. Man, if y'all ain't excited, I don't know what to tell you. That means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a big fantasy football experience like never before. And by the way, listen, we almost got, I think we have about 3 or 4 slots left for the Locked On Texans Fantasy League, which will be hosted on Yahoo Fantasy. So if you want to get in, follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Shoot me a DM. We'll get everything situated. And if we need to, I'll kick off another Locked On Texans Fantasy Football League. Want everybody to be able to come together, have fun, this shit, trash talk, and just play some good fantasy football. And everything will be hosted on Yahoo Fantasy Football. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped the Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there is one team left standing. Somewhat like a Hell in a Cell match or elimination match on WWF, man. So that's crazy. If you want to get in on that, you can. With the season around the corner, now is the time to get your leagues together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classic games, the classic way of playing fantasy football, no worry, you can still play head-to-head in private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Welcome back, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers, closing out today's show, talking about the importance of getting Christian Harris back. It is about the future just as much as it is about the right now. Harris County, probably the coolest name. So I can't wait to see how they kind of play around with that in the NRG, who just did a lot of upgrades to help with fan experience. Shout out to the McNairs. But this is year 7 for Azeez Al-Shaair. Last year, he was featured in 80% of the defensive snaps. The year before that, 96. Henry T's snap count jumped up to 85 in absence of Christian Harris. And so when I say this is just about it's about the future just as much as it is about the right now, Azeez has one more year left after this year. EJ Speed was signed on a very team-friendly contract for 1 year. Jamal Hill is a player that I think the coaching staff likes. Don't know where they view him in terms of the future and how this linebacker room is set up currently. I mean, you look at how much we talked about the DBs, but a full healthy season from Christian Harris, every level on that defense can get talked about in the same manner, the same tone, the same way. Great. And Christian Harris adds to the Texans being in that top 3, top 5 defense team in the league. So Christian Harris is all about the right now, but it's also about the future. And I want to make sure that I gave you guys the snap count percentages for Azeez and also Henry T, because Christian Harris, is he the more talented linebacker over Henry T? He is. But I think Houston saw last year that, hey, man, Henry T is actually, he grew up a lot. He's doing the things that we're asking of him. He's gotten better. He's fixed some of his flaws and gotten better. And then because of Christian Harris, the injury that kept him out for so long, like a lot of the things that has transpired with Christian Harris over the past season and some time, it's essentially just one season, that will go into how they look at Christian Harris and negotiate with him during contract time. So for the future, Azeez with one more year left after this year, EJ Speed on a 1-year deal. It looks like the Houston Texans have their linebackers for the future. But for right now, you look at being able to give Azeez a break when he needs it. Like, you look at the Houston Texans linebacker group right now and say, man, these guys could very well help each other out because maybe we don't see 80% snap count per game. Maybe we don't see that. Maybe we see that go down to 65 to 60 because you have 4 linebackers essentially that can do what DeMeco Ryans and Matt Burke is asking of that group. That's dangerous. That is dangerous. That's because, like, okay, second down, 2nd and 8, you take Azeez out, you put Henry T in. That's Henry T and Christian Harris. 3rd and 6, you put Azeez back in. Now you got Azeez and Christian Harris out there with Jalen Petrie, Derek Stingley, Kamari Lassiter, and the DBs behind them. Now you're looking at that team being able to cover the flats, the curls, the slants, the hook, the deep third, anything through the middle, because you have a Christian Harris uber athletic linebacker that can cover sideline to sideline and understands how to take away zones and understand how to read and react. But you also got Azeez right there that can do the same thing, especially when Azeez is a little bit more fresher in terms of body. That's dangerous. And then maybe you want to put Henry T and EJ Speed out there because you know it's a run situation and they can just crash downhill. The D linemen, especially those D tackle, they're going to make their jobs easier because they're going to open up gaps and holes for them. They're not going to chase. They're going to be where they need to be. They're going to play their assignment in a disciplined way. Those linebackers can eat. That is why Christian Harris getting him back. And I'll admit, man, I was worried. You guys know that. And I'm the president of the Henry T fan club. I was like, hey, man, he didn't play this way at the Christian Harris spot. But Houston loves Christian Harris. And I'm not going to say that he's going to be the week 1 starter. He did get out there during walkthroughs with the ones. I'm not saying it's going to be the week 1 starter, but I'm just saying look at the possibilities that Christian Harris brings to this defense. And also considering, like, Foley Fadakowski hadn't been out there. Like some of those guys, Tim Settle's been out there, Sheldon Rankins has been out there who's been great, who's also been in this system. But, like, look at Houston and where they want to improve in terms of stopping the run. Average running backs didn't really do no damage to Houston. But there were some backs last year that got the best of the Houston Texans defense. So now you get Christian Harris back. You can't play. Now you're looking at quarterbacks that got Will and Daniil crashing in on them, and they play smart and disciplined. So there's not going to be a lot of moments where the quarterback can just bounce out and maybe pick up some extra yards. You got Tim Settle, Sheldon Rankins in the middle. You're going to run on him. You're going to play action. What you going to do? That's why he's so important. And then, again, I want to emphasize for the future, getting Christian Harris back allows for Houston to really look at what he does on the field, how long he's on the field, how often he's on the field, and use that because essentially since he's gotten to Houston, you know, how much of that is a sample size, but use that information into contract negotiation time and getting him on a team-friendly deal to keep this linebacker group, at least its core, the young core, intact for the future. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube. If you want to get down with the Yahoo Fantasy League, follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Can't wait to continue to talk Texans with you guys, and I will tomorrow. So until next time, ladies and gents, Texan fans across the nation, peace.